Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
It's got Star Trek. Episode 99. Lower Decks, Season 2, Episode 10. First Contact.
The captain needs our support, especially from you. Look, however this rescue goes, either we're gonna be dead or she's gonna be on a new ship. Is this really how you want to leave things with her?
Of course not, but I can't patch things up now. I have to swim down and unclamp a thingy.
No, you don't. Boimler's got this.
You guys don't understand my family.
We are your family! We will always be there for you, and right now we're heading into a pile of crazy, dangerous space debris!
Whoa, Tendi,
No. Just trust us. We can do this. Go to the bridge, apologize, and make sure your mom doesn't get us all killed!
You guys are right. You got this, Boims?
Yes, go!
Thanks, okay, sorry.
You want to start the podcast?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Because I can start the podcast.
Episode 99.
Episode 99. All right. I'm starting this is official. The podcast has begun.
Episode 99.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
As Jesse is noting, this is episode 19.
Oh, man.
99. This is episode 99 of the It's Got Star Trek podcast. So we are going to be discussing.
What are we? We're a podcast now? Yeah. Is that what we're in on now?
We've had this discussion before.
No one told me.
Well, we will eventually, quite soon, very rapidly, be talking about the season 2 finale of Star Trek Lower Decks,
Leg rest,
entitled First Contact. But briefly, first, a reminder that since this is the 99th episode, the next episode is the 100th episode. And for that episode, we're going to do a very special episode where we answer listener questions and all that stuff. Listener, what do you call it? Listener
feedback.
Listener letters. Listener, yeah, whatever.
Is it like with the the new centuries where it's not actually 100 until it hits 101 or whatever?
No,
it's not like
in
that.
this case,
it's
it is
not.
not like that.
No.
It's not like the calendar.
We don't got to worry about that. So for next week, 100th episode, going to be answering your questions, responding to your comments, etc. You can send those in to feedback@itsgotstartrek.com. If you want to get us on social media, Twitter is probably the best place to go, @itsgotstartrek. Just sign in and write us a tweet.
Set us straight.
Comment or...
Can you write a tweet or do you tweet a tweet?
Well, you write a tweet and then you tweet it.
Is it like
Twitter.
writing a book?
As you're composing it, you are writing it.
You compose
when you
a
click the
tweet?
tweet button, you have thusly
You tweeted
it. You twat it is the past tense.
Twat.
I believe.
You twat.
You twat it.
Okay, twat.
Tweeted. Twat.
Twart.
All right.
Twitter twat.
As a twir.
Then you're a Twitter twat.
Okay, that's enough front matter. Let's get to the middle matter,
front
That was
matter.
a healthy amount.
and then
Show
we'll
you
close
some-
down with the back matter.
And the
Hell yeah.
give you some brain matter.
All right,
Let's try.
front matter done. Middle matter, meat of the episode, discussion of the episode, season finale. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It was an awesome episode.
It kept me going. Everything was like, I was like, whoa, hey, whoa, what's happening? Whoa.
Action packed.
I don't know if they meant to do this, or if I'm just sort of silly, but I felt like the whole thing was kind of. I know that they played up all these sort of important situations to make it tense and stuff, but I actually felt that there was some active misdirection going on in terms of. Especially Tendi.
yeah.
I kept feeling like Tendi was going to die. That's what and at the same time, I was like, they're not going to kill off Tendi. Like, they're not going to do that. But at the same time, I got this sort of dreadful feeling like,
What about Boimler? Boimler seemed like he could have been in real risk. There was real tension there because not only was he in a
almost
dangerous
drowned.
situation, but we know he has a clone. So they already have a built-in excuse to say, oh, we could kill this Boimler. So I think the audience implicitly knows that and worries for Boimler and worries to think, oh no, we're going to have to bring back William Boimler and he's going to be a complete piece of shit because he's been hanging out on the Titan.
that's a good point. I thought there was a couple people. I think there was a moment where I thought Rutherford might go. I don't know why I thought that.
He was getting all those error alerts. On
Well,
his
I think there was
You
this.
could delete his brain by accident.
Yeah.
And I thought that for some reason I thought, oh well, if Freeman's gonna leave, well they might as well. If they're gonna kill someone, they might as well kill her if she's gonna leave. But
I think a lot of people thought that heading into this episode.
now I don't know how much of they kept secret about the actors jobs for next year, meaning like, cause this is something you could have figured out simply by looking into what the actors are up to. I didn't do that though, so I didn't know.
You didn't investigate the contractual negotiations.
Exactly. I didn't investigate. Right. I didn't get clues, but I thought maybe it was because
You're not one of them insiders.
no, I'm not one of them Star Trek insiders. I'm just a fan, just like everyone else. I'm just like you guys. I'm normal, like you.
You don't live in Hollywood.
Holly weird.
There was a scene where Tendi and when Rutherford was showing Tendi a good time, and they were hiding in that Jeffries tube, and they were like, "I love the Cerritos. The Cerritos is fantastic. Yay! I'm gonna miss the Cerritos."
Which was about as close as they've ever gotten to declaring their feelings for each other.
Oh, that's a good point.
Via the conduit of their equally sincere love of the ship.
Right.
Like, they are both 100% sincere.
While they're
in their love of
inside
the
a
ship.
conduit.
Right. That's a good point. And so that's why it was more like I thought Rutherford might die by proxy due to that scene, when really Tendi, there was a couple scenes. There was that scene because I know it was all under the idea that she's leaving, right? But I felt like
she thinks she does.
Yeah.
Well, she thinks,
She has jumped the gun
It's part
yet
of the
again.
It's more misdirection, like you were talking about. Like something's up, but I still had the feeling like, well, we're not getting the whole story,
right. That was
especially with Tendi.
Right. It was interesting because Mariner had the whole thing where she overheard her mom talking about leaving, and then Tendi had that whole thing where she was overhearing Tana talk the thing.
She saw like her name get erased from the system.
Right. So Tendi jumped the gun on what was going on. Yeah. Mariner, there wasn't really much gun to be jumping in terms of interpretation, but what she did do is like handle it in a pretty terrible way. Mariner did a terrible job of handling it because she should have just left it. And when Freeman was like, I was going to do it at my proper time, Mariner was being a little snotty at that point. But I mean, it's not without understanding. But there was the other scene where they kept talking about like, Rutherford erasing Tendi's memories, and I thought that was going to be set up. It's like, oh no, it's going to be sad because then they're going to kill off Tendi, and then Rutherford's going to have no memories, and it's going to be so depressing. I know.
It's like, what about the history of this show made us think that was going to happen?
I know.
I think what it is it's the skill of the writers in how they've constructed not only this specific episode, which is really well put together, but the whole arc over the past couple seasons, because talking about misdirects, I think the first misdirect they give us is with the whole Freeman thing, because we are set up from the beginning to expect that there's going to be a new status quo, that Freeman is going to leave, and we don't know exactly how that's going to be resolved. Maybe some people assume, by the end of the story she won't, or whatever. We go through the story, and then things are set back to normal, basically, because she's like, I've learned that I love it here, etc. And then the rug is pulled out from us under again, because then Freeman is arrested. So we were led to believe the status quo would be changed. Then we were led to believe through the course of the plot that eventually it was going to be set back to the reset button kind of thing, only to have it end up being like, no, in fact, the status quo has changed.
So for that scene, first I'm going to go back to Tendi. The other part of the thing that was sort of like I thought something might be going on is when she looked at the nacelles for the last time and she was that shot, she's like, oh, I'm gonna miss those nacelles or whatever, and it was just about her leaving, but it all
they're gonna blow up in her fucking face.
It just seemed that
she's gonna die,
and everything seemed to be directing towards that she was gonna die. Now this relates to what you just said, because based on what we've seen from TVs and movies, right, there's certain clues you can have about what's going to happen, which I felt like the rug was pulled under us at the end, but it wasn't entirely surprising because, like, let's say you have a movie and the movie just shows this character, he wakes up and there's a shot of him waking up and a shot of him having breakfast every day. And then one time it shows him walking from breakfast or walking from waking up to...
Are you talking about the movie Free Guy?
No, I'm talking about...
Because I think something similar happens in that.
Oh, maybe I'm subconsciously doing it. I don't know. That was a fun movie. I like that movie. Yes. But so you're used to this shot happening, breakfast or waking up, breakfast. One day the camera decides to follow this character from waking up to breakfast. That's how you know something's going to happen, because it's a seemingly mundane...
Filmic language.
It's a seemingly mundane situation. Like, why are we just suddenly following this person to breakfast unless something crucial is going to happen? And so that's kind of what happened with Freeman, because they spent a good amount of time saying, she was like, Starfleet's here already. And then Ransom's like, boy, they're going to love you. And then Mariner's like, congratulations, Mom. Yeah. And so they... if it was just them congratulating her, they would have skipped all that and just skipped straight to her getting a medal. They wouldn't have shown all this stuff leading up. So that's how they clued you into something was going to happen, which is what
makes time travel possible.
So in the sense that they played this, when Freeman was going and they showed it and played up, something's going to happen. That's kind of like what they were doing with the whole episode with other stuff, like Tendi. Oh, something's going to happen to Tendi. Something's going to happen. But no, there was nothing. So you could see it as a purposeful misdirect, or you could just see them trying to create general tension. I don't know.
But there's just all this ominous stuff that's just like, this is just more ominous, and this is more ominous.
And what it is it's writers and producers who understand that filmic language and know how to manipulate it. Sometimes you use it for it's a visual grammar that we've learned over the years. We've created in the history of film, and you can use that to do exactly what it's supposed to do, as you said. In some cases, that's what you do, but in other cases, you go against it in order to fuck with things. And the classic example is in Jaws, where Steven Spielberg, throughout the bulk of the movie, the beginning of the movie, that the shark is always associated with that dun 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 Jaws music, right? The shark music is always associated with the shark. If the music plays, you're going to see the shark, or if you see the shark, the music plays. Until there's a scene where there's no music's playing at all, and then boom, the shark comes out. Because what they're doing is they're actually leveraging the fact that you have that expectation to fuck with you. And they're not fucking with us so much here, but in this episode, I think they were doing a lot of that with Mariner being in trouble, with Boimler being in trouble, with Tendi's situation.
By the time they get to Boimler, it's later in the episode, and it's almost like they're making fun of it, because it's like, you have to go down this tube and like go down this other side
and
tube,
wedge yourself through this hole.
And it was funny because there's definitely a trope in all shows where they got to open, especially sci-fi, where they have to open the latch thing and the release valve, and it's stuck, and it was stuck on the outside and the inside too. So
Andy gets like nicked and like his suit starts leaking or whatever.
So there was that brief moment where it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't think he's gonna die here, but it's still there's still so much shit going on.
He's got those belugas. The belugas are gonna find him eventually.
Yeah, those Randy belugas.
What was it, Matt and Kalimo?
Kimolu.
Kimalo.
Matt and Kimalo. I think it was like I think it pronounced it Kimalo. I think is how Rutherford pronounced it. It was kind of weird that they were really like they wanted to go skinny dipping. That was a funny gag. Skinny dipping is like not only are they Randy for these humans, but it's like, what does skinny dipping mean?
You look all sweaty. Like,
they were specifically trying to get Rutherford in there. They didn't seem to care so much about the others.
Were they belugas? Is that what they were?
Yeah, they were belugas.
But they were wearing their little Starfleet uniforms.
They looked like belugas.
I think they had lieutenant pips.
So it was like, what does skinny dipping mean to a sea creature? I don't know.
They just want to slurp up some of that salty Rutherford sweat. Which is understandable.
And it's fucked up that
that's an okie dokie from me.
And it's fucked up they live in that tank, yet they didn't make them flipper accessible. They didn't make their job flipper accessible.
That was dumb. It's not the Enterprise.
It shows that the Federation is
the
not
Enterprise
perfect.
Cetacean Ops probably has a flipper-friendly interface.
So I thought the episode, with the Boimler thing, whether or not I thought he was gonna die, it didn't really matter because so much stuff was going on and things were going
never
up
matters.
and down.
I mean, in these types of shows, it never mattered. On the Next Generation, you weren't watching like episode 5 of the first season and thinking Picard was going to die.
Oh, right. No, I know. There's that, of course, too.
But good writing gets around that. It can still build tension around even foregone conclusions.
I mean, yeah, it was cool that they played it up like that. Part of me thought, and
which part?
The cool, awesome part. Okay. Not the lame, stupid part.
I just want to clarify.
I only bring out the lame, stupid part when I want to like be on your guys' level. So I can relate to you.
I guess
it's
that's
not when you're talking about.
I guess that's technically a burn of sorts. It wasn't stated with that much confidence, but
so while I'm super glad nobody died because I don't want to see any of those characters leave. I would be so sad, and it would be such a bummer if it kind of undercut sort of the dramatic tension of the end of the episode a little bit, because we know it's going to happen next season. It's going to be just a court case. It's going to get resolved. Now, what's the real sort of...
That's the expectation. They'll probably play with in some
classic
fashion.
Star Trek court case.
Just like they did with... I give them so much respect for the joke they did with Shax. which was Shax dies at the end of last season, and he's still dead at the beginning of season 2. And then one day he just shows back up and is just like, oh yeah, we're not going to talk about that. And nobody's worried about it because in Star Trek land, it just that sort of happens. So I'm not suggesting they're going to do the same joke with Captain Freeman. However, that Shax jokes is evidence to me that they're likely to make us think they're going in one direction with the Freeman thing, and then it's going to turn into something else. For example, it opens up the possibility of Mach getting involved because he witnessed what goes on. He went on, and
That's
the Klingons.
Hopefully T'Lyn comes, somehow.
T'Lyn might be involved because she developed that whole sensor thing in the first place.
Right.
So maybe that she can help.
That'd be
out
cool
in
if that
some way.
episode played into some stuff.
It seems like the
that.
Packlets just blew their dumb asses up themselves.
I honestly think I've heard a few people suggest, and I think on the internet, and I think they're correct, that it said Pack-led planet blew up. We've been to Pack-led planet, but as far as we know, they might just name all the
They could
planets
have
that are
all
on
the-
Pack-led
right.
planet.
Yeah, it could just be some moon
Their
somewhere.
ships, all their ships are just called Packlets.
So they could go a million different directions. With
Right,
it.
and that's what brings the real sort of intrigue of the episode, I think, is there is, of course, the concern of what's going to happen to Freeman. The assumption is it's going to be all right, but like you pointed out, it's Star Trek, that they might, Lower Decks is self-aware in that sense of Star Trek, so they can play with that, but the real intrigue is what happened on Packlet Planet, and how does that weird Rutherford memory play into it?
Oh, right.
And they've opened up things that are going to be interesting to explore.
Right. It's funny, Rutherford's just like, I don't think I was supposed to see that. Oh, well. He's always so positive about everything. But
And it's a Vulcan implant, right?
was it Vulcan?
Isn't that from the very beginning of the show? It's like it's,
is that a Vulcan implant?
It's some kind of Vulcan implant, whatever that means. That's
now
the
we don't
style.
know. We don't know that he got it on Vulcan. We don't know anything. We don't know his background.
I don't
we
know
don't
what
know
Vulcan implant means.
We haven't heard anything about his family, so we just don't know what his deal
So
is.
it seems like that implant is either A, some kind of makes him a human bomb, or B, was that like Manchurian candidate?
Yeah, Manchurian
Yeah.
Candidate. Similar to
Something like-
Geordie LaForge when he gets brainwashed.
Oh, yeah.
when he turns into the weird skin tight suit people.
No, that's I like that episode because it
episode's too
skeeves me the fuck out.
I know, it's
No, I was talking about the
skeeve
one where
suit.
because of his neural implants for his visor, I believe it's the Romulans with the Klingon guy are able to hack into his brain basically.
So is it like presumptuous and potentially offensive for me to assume it was
Probably.
like the British guy who was at the end who at the end
I had not considered that, and
And he's the evil guy.
that he's because they both had British accents.
it might be presumptuous, but I will leave it to the audience.
Well, someone in England's going to be like,
no.
no, he's clearly from this part of England, and that guy was clearly
I
from that
know.
part of England, and I'm ignorant, so I don't
therefore,
know.
Like
We
the other,
are-
the other guy's evil.
I'm
are
American. I'm like the only non-American accent, and appeared in Rutherford's like memory dream, and was the one that took away Freeman. So they must be related because they're the non-Americans.
We have
And
trouble
that's fucked up.
distinguishing-
That's fucked up of me, and I need to
Some
work
kind
on
of
that.
Section 31 action.
We have trouble
like that.
distinguishing between various regional dialects from the British Isles. We look forward to
getting better.
Yeah, we're getting better. We're looking forward to rectifying that over time.
Yeah. So
I can usually tell if it's like a northern accent because
So I'm trying not to make that assumption, but I'm trying to also grab at any straws any connections I can
Well,
make. And so I need to be careful about which straws I grab
So
for.
there's a million things to talk about in this episode, but I think one thing that helps start with it is we've discussed what some of the plot is, right? All these things we've discussed so far are plotting, really well done. It's a framework upon which they can put their excellent characterization. And in this episode, with our four main characters, each of them in this episode got to go through a little journey, which basically helps close off some of their prior character arcs while also opening up new ones, right? So like if you consider like Boimler, this is the episode where he is the first time he really stands up to Mariner. Right, he did it with the Jeffrey Combs computer, but that was part of a ruse and all that. In this one, he stands up to Mariner in Cetacean Ops, and he's not standing up for himself. He's standing up for her. He's getting in her face to tell her what she needs to say, which is sort of a real mark of growth for that character because normally he's sort of cowed by dealing with Mariner. And then Tendi thinks she's going from being pushed out of maybe even Starfleet, certainly at a medical, because of these jumping the gun assumptions she makes, because she's got to jump to conclusions, Matt. Office Space. That's an Office Space reference.
I think about that joke every once in a while. I'm like,
I
that
think
is
about it
really
almost every day.
It's like it's so perfectly awful on purpose. It's amazing.
Yeah,
you jump to conclusions. It's like that's the worst idea.
But Tandy thinks that she's failed, which is a running thing with her. It's a running gag that her personality is that she's. It's not even right, I don't think, to call her a perfectionist. She certainly is in that direction, but
she's trying to please people.
She always thinks she's not good enough.
Yeah, and at the very end with Tana, she's apologizing, but what is she even apologizing for? There's no evidence. There's not even an evidence that it's like, oh, I dropped this thing when I wasn't supposed. I dropped a beaker or whatever you call it. I don't know, the Star Trek. I dropped a Star Trek Cerritos beaker on the floor,
and like with the logo crystal etched.
It wasn't even she did something silly like that and thought she was getting fired for it. There was nothing. There was literally nothing she was apologizing
because
for.
it is an insecurity that she has that is so deep that it's negatively impacting her life. She just assumes she's been fired.
Right? And I think the closest we get is she says, "I've been busy doing other stuff," and it's like so vague. But like you said,
I should have been mean.
Yeah, I should have been mean.
She's taking the wrong lessons from it.
Yeah,
but of course, in the end, her arc that arc has been going on for a long time. This insecurity that she has, and now that arc has been closed off because not only had she not failed, she was so successful to the point of unsettling Dr. Tana, which is a great line. It's like you master everything you try. It's unsettling. But she's getting promoted to the science command, the senior science officer.
Do you think
like Jadzia Dax?
Who the fuck is that?
Yeah, do you think Terry Farrell felt a little bit bad, or do you think? I get it's a joke and everything, but
I think it's hilarious because
who the fuck is that? I don't know who that is.
She's like, no, like Spock. I love that joke because so much of the jokes of these types of jokes leading up to this episode throughout the first two seasons have been people knowing people like Kirk and Pike and Q and all these people that we're familiar with, and this is a great way to they're turning that trope on us where she's like, oh, like Jadzia Dax, and it's like, no, why would Dr. Tana give a fuck who that is?
Yeah, and
she knows Spock because it's a historical figure, who's still alive at that point. He's on Romulus,
and they bring up some really obscure Star Trek characters like over the course of Lower Decks, and they're like, that person, right? Jadzia's.
So that was good, but ultimately, Tandy's plot again. They've run this plot through, and now she's getting promoted. And of course, we'll see how they play it in the next season in her commander training. I'm not saying that she's going to be free of all her insecurities now, but I think probably what they'll do with the character is say, okay, now we're going to develop some new issues for her in terms of responsibility, in terms of whatever it is that she's trying to accomplish with herself. It'll move away a little bit, I think, probably from that constantly thinking she's not good enough because now she's been promoted. It's hard. Even she will understand that and internalize that fact.
When you were talking about a Boimler sort of, telling Mariner what she needs to do, and Mariner was sort of being wishy-washy about it or whatever the word is. And then, of course, because Tendy's under stress, she just like loses it at Mariner. And it's just like, you're our family, you moron or whatever.
Yeah.
She's like, go do your thing, do your shit. She's freaking out. And then
I had to listen to it a couple times, but I think she said like, and go make sure mom doesn't blow up the ship. I couldn't tell if she said your mom or mom. I think she might have said just mom, in which case now she's associating herself like in the family of Mariner, like Captain Freeman is the mom of the ship.
That's interesting because I just sort of assume that she said your mom,
and she may have,
but if maybe she didn't.
I didn't put on the subtitles.
I actually did watch it with the subtitles, so maybe that's where I'm getting it from.
It's a great debate. Write us in at feedback at itsgotStarTrek.com.
Great debate.
I'm going to speak real quickly about subtitles.
You watch it with subtitles.
Real quick. Lightning round. It's funny when Tendi loses it and gets down to business and freaks out. Like people listen. Even Mariner, she stops dilly-dallying about. She's with Boimler. You can tell she's listening, but she's like, I don't know. But then Tendi, when Tendi flips out, everyone listens because they know it's like down to business time. It's serious shit's going on.
Did you see when Billups flipped out?
That was great.
He was like, just one of this like long like cussing spree about.
He's like, that's fucking bullshit. My favorite line of his is when he said, "Our warp core is twice as fast as any other fucking ship in the fleet." Like, that doesn't even make sense. Come on.
Well, when they find out that when Mariner tells everyone about Freeman's transfer, they're all pissed. Ransom and Shax are all pissed off, and you know he's mad too, but he's more sad.
Yeah,
like, he's like really sad. And he's crying.
Billups is crying at first. All right, so
I was going to say about the closed captioning, the Lapirians and the lap system.
Mm-hmm.
The lap system is spelled LAAP.
yeah, but Lapirian's 1A.
Yeah, 1A. So that's
I noticed that as well.
that is
on
that was
online.
weird.
on the line.
Online.
Which maybe they noticed from the.
All right, so getting back to the whole arcs that are closing down and opening up, that's Tendi. Then Rutherford's, as we discussed already, basically, but he's learned to resolve some of his issues. With his, he's basically hoarding memories. He finally deletes them because he has to.
Okay, wait.
He gets this memory of being in alien abduction style, having the implant put in.
He didn't need to delete all his memories. He said he had 3 backups. He could have been just as fine deleting one backup.
No. He didn't delete all his memories. It said like they show the menu command, which is
redundant.
Redundant.
Now,
memories.
but redundant does that? Because he said he had 3 backups. Does that mean
it just meant he deleted the 2 backups?
just the 2, and so he
It's
still
the
has
cleanup,
one.
It's the disk cleanup thing. And
Now-
Billups gave him that really good advice, which was like, hey, it's if you can't make new memories, it's not going to be worth holding on to the old ones, right?
Yeah, well, that was my.
Because how much space does he have on there? And if it's
Not enough.
If it's a Klingon implant, well, Klingons live
It's a
longer.
Vulcan implant.
So these,
I'm sorry. Yeah, my brain got fucked up. It's a Vulcan implant. Vulcans live longer. You need more memory space.
oh yeah,
Yeah, but just because it's a Vulcan
That's a
implant,
good point, actually.
That doesn't mean they gave him the high end,
Well, you
SD
get the high
card.
end, and if you're doing like 3 copies,
They
of
gave him like a
everything-
32 gig SD card because they're like, we don't need to.
If you have
spending the extra $5 on this guy
Yeah,
just because
right,
he's a spy.
If you have your normal memory and then you have like 3 backup memories, so that means he's got 4 memories altogether.
Yeah, I was confused. So I was confused about that.
That's going to use up a bunch of space.
Does he automatically have memories of everything that he's experienced? Is that default that he has? He keeps
Well, yeah,
all his memories.
he's got memory and then he's got 3 backups.
Yeah, so he automatically keeps one
Just
set.
it's similar in some ways to the remember Ariam, where was it? Commander Ariam, Lieutenant Commander
Yeah,
Ariam?
exactly. Yeah.
On Discovery.
Yeah, I was
where
thinking that.
there was that whole storyline where she
got her memory,
had to
right,
she had to download her memories into a data bank every night.
See,
Yeah, well,
right.
that was the previous century. So they had older technology.
Yeah,
They were talking megabytes,
So they would-
not terabytes.
So
if
he
you know
could
what I
have
mean.
he could have thrown it up on some cloud storage somewhere. Anyways,
Yeah.
at minimum, he didn't need to delete 2 backups. He could have deleted 1 backup and been fine.
Yeah, but it was an emergency situation. I think he just had to clean. He just did the disk cleanup.
Back
he
it
just,
up.
he just did
Didn't
the
have-
default.
didn't have time.
He didn't have time.
He didn't have the time.
He didn't have the time.
Okay, so you're talking about how he just deleted his memories and he saw the
Deleted
weird
it.
memory in his brain.
He
That's
just
what happened.
deleted
But long story short on that,
He
it's
just deleted it.
it's that he deals with this whole episode. He's dealing with his relationship with Tendi, even though it's mediated in many ways through the ship, as we discussed. But he clears out his memories. He learns a little bit. He's helping Tendi, and then this new storyline is opened up for him, where presumably we will discover more about what his deal is, right? But Mariner, I think, is the most interesting.
There's always something every season going on with Rutherford's implant. Like
Yeah.
so far, that's been sort of a theme. That's
it's
going on.
it's what happens at the end of the season. Something with his implant.
But Mariner, for me, has the most interesting sort of arc thing because closing and starting, because she confronts her attachment to her mom, right? That's what this episode for her is fundamentally about. She hears that her mom is going to leave, and she reacts, as you were saying earlier, Dan. She has a ridiculous reaction to this. She goes behind her mom's back to tell her senior staff before her mom's ready to tell them.
Yeah, that was fucked up.
And it was fucked up, and she knew it was fucked up. You saw it on her face.
You
that she
kind of
knew
saw
it was
a little
fucked up.
smirk at some
She was
point.
happy.
Like,
She was looking at her mom, and she was like,
self-satisfied.
"Yeah, I fucked up your day, and
Where
I'm
did
happy
those
about
bushes
it."
come from? She all hid behind like some
They
kind of
occasionally
funny
have
plants.
those, and I think that's a gag on how occasionally on TNG, they would
guess
just
they
be
did
they would just
sometimes,
occasionally would have some bushes in a hallway. Most of the time they weren't there, but every now and then.
Was
there
it
would
like
actually be some
were they
bushes.
synthetic?
I don't know.
Were they alive? Did they come out of the replicator either
question.
way?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I know. Right?
So Mariner's arc here is that she's got this attachment issue with her mom, and she denies it at first, and then she finally admits to it after Boimler and Tendi shake her around a little bit. and it's resolved. She goes and makes up with her mom, but then of course her mom is taken away from her by being arrested. So what that's doing is it's disrupting Mariner's stability in the sense that we are shown that Mariner's described as a character who loves chaos. We've seen her encourage chaos and cause troubles and cause problems. But the whole time, she has this attachment to her mom and to Boimler in particular. Others as well, but those in particular. When Boimler left the Cerritos, she freaked the fuck out. And when she found out her mom was going to leave the Cerritos, because they're like anchors of stability for her psychologically, I think that's my interpretation, right? That she needs those people. She needs the Cerritos to be what it is. She doesn't want it to change too much, because that is easier. It's either an excuse for her chaotic behavior or allows her to indulge in it because she has that safe home to go to.
Well, she even said that when she goes, I'm a Kirk type, blah, blah, blah. That's why you always protect me from court-martials and stuff. That happened on the captain's yacht when Rutherford discovered how to fix the thing behind the scenes.
I didn't think they had a captain's yacht. I thought that was only for like special ships like the Enterprise.
Nah, they all have them now.
So, and I didn't.
There are a dime a dozen these captains.
I didn't know how to read that line. I thought there was something conflicting about that line. Not as far as the writers are conflicting. I'm saying the character is sort of blatantly conflicting with herself. She's like, I'm a Kirk type, but I depend on you to get me out of trouble. And like, that's not really Kirk's deal. Like,
I think that's an excellent observation, because you're right. That is, and her mom basically calls her out on it. She doesn't say exactly.
It's more like McCoy's
Kirk,
deal.
Well, yeah. Well, Kirk gets people help get Kirk out of jams, but that's because Kirk is so awesome to those people.
It's like Chekhov.
It's like Kirk opens up and is awesome to those people, so they want to help him out. But then her mom's like, you're not a Kirk type. You don't let down your defenses to get close to people.
I think her mom chiefly, Boimler second, maybe the Cerritos in general. I think those are her anchors of stability, and that she'd be unmoored quite literally without them. And what's so interesting about this ending,
unmoored.
Yeah. A little naval humor there.
Naval. I hate naval. Like, doesn't your belly button.
Yeah. Untethered, unmoored.
Same diff.
It's almost a haiku. But we, now that we know her mom has been arrested, however that's resolved, even if it's resolved fairly quickly in the next season, what it opens up the possibility for is in this episode, Mariner has just come to terms with the fact that she has this reliance on her mom, this attachment to her mom. She values this relationship. She's just heard that it's going to continue, even though she's accepted the idea that she might have to become independent of her mother, because she's happy to see her mother get promoted and get rewarded for the effort she's put into being a captain and all that. But then her mom is taken away. And so now she has no choice but to deal without her mom, right?
So that's a good point, because before I was talking about how all the crazy shit kind of undercut what the drama of Freeman getting arrested is like, oh, she just gets arrested. But it's not so much about her getting arrested as much as it's about how all the things around Freeman are going to be affected by this arrest. One of them being Mariner, and then the other being like, well, what's going on with this Packlet planet? What's going on with all stuff? Like, Freeman's going to court, and that's tense, but however they'd want to resolve it is fine. But like you said, it opens doors for how things around her get affected.
And Mariner will presumably be chiefly affected because she has already now admitted how much she needs her mother, and now she won't have her. But on the other hand, they'll probably end up with a replacement captain. Who are they going to get? Are they going to get Jellicoe or something?
Exactly.
Somebody to come? Or are they going to be Captain, I don't know who it might be, Harry Kim or something? I don't think he'd be a captain at this point in the timeline.
Still not a captain. I think he probably just made lieutenant by this point.
But the point being, imagine they get Jellicoe or somebody like
Chakotay.
that.
I think Chakotay's in prison, dude.
Well, if they get a new captain, what happens if the captain's a really good captain? Mm-hmm. What happens if the captain is somebody who maybe like Boimler is like really into, or Mariner herself maybe gets into there's the conflict of this person's actually, there are improvements on the ship or something. They could do a lot.
What happened to Wesley? Could he be a captain?
Wesley's always palling around with that shady traveler fella.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Well, they made a point to do some characterization around Captain Gomez, which was.
Do you know who Captain Gomez is?
Yeah.
No, who is that?
She spilled coffee on Captain Picard.
Hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate.
This is brilliant. This is such a low-key Easter egg.
Old TNG episode. With Jordy's trying to kind of mac on her. And
She was in Q-Who and the Samaritan Snare.
Okay, that makes
which is with the Pakleds, where the Pakleds are introduced.
Okay, that makes total sense because when that ensign fell over, I was like, what's the point of her telling the ensign like to not worry about it? Is it just to show how awesome Gomez is as a captain? It's like, no, that's a direct reference because she spilled stuff on Picard.
So what happens is Ensign Gomez.
Okay, that makes much more sense.
And by the way, played both on TNG and in Lower Decks by is it Lycia or Lycia Naff?
Not sure, but yeah.
But so she played Gomez as an ensign. And now she's playing her as a captain, which is a great sort of metaphor for the characters we're watching, because it's presumably the same course. We saw her as a bumbling ensign, and now she's clearly a very successful captain if she's being appointed to an Obena class, the Archimedes.
Okay, so originally I was confused by some of that stuff because
like updated Excelsior.
At the end, when Freeman's all drunk and she's like, Captain Gomez recovering nicely. It was kind of her to let me finish the mission. No ego on that one. I was like, is that some kind of setup to say that, well, Gomez is actually evil and this is just a ruse? It's like, no, it's just
really nice person.
It's just referencing that because
she's a good person,
and it makes sense because she was in a previous.
She's
episode.
a much less intimidating captain.
And in Q-Who, the gag is funny because she replicates some hot chocolate and she turns around too fast or something. She's like walking around with this hot chocolate and comes, and Picard just runs into Picard and just completely fucking covers his uniform.
He's got to go back and change.
And she's all like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And he's all like,
totally put off. No, he's still
clearly pissed off.
He's pissed, but he's just
trying to be cool about it.
You got to chill out, Ensign. But don't ever do that again.
And her character is interesting. A lot of people
don't drink in engineering.
People don't drink in warp. People have talked about Ensign Gomez for years because people were wondering what happened to the character, because she was on these 2 episodes and it really seemed like they were trying to set her up either as a romantic relationship or at least a friendship for Geordi. And then she disappeared, right? So apparently the behind the scenes, I don't know for certain. What I was able to research on the web suggests that it was nothing more than the writers sort of decided to go in a different direction and didn't return to the character. But now, shows you Star Trek's pretty kick-ass awesome if you can get a job many years later. I don't even think she doesn't act regularly now. She's trained as a dancer, and there is one other property that she is famous for other than TNG's 2 episodes. Do you know what it is, Jesse?
No.
And Dan, you probably don't know because this is news to you. She played the 3-breasted woman in Total Recall, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Total Recall, 1990.
Interesting.
That's funny.
Yeah,
that's interesting. What a.
Now that you say that, I can kind of see.
What do you call that? What do you call that when you have something on your acting resume?
I don't know. A credit?
A credit? Yeah, there you go. I think that's right.
An extra boob.
An extra boob.
An extra boob.
So right, that started getting me thinking about Captain Picard.
How do you know it's extra?
You're talking about past episodes. It started getting me thinking about Captain Picard Day, which was from the episode Pegasus.
Yeah,
that's for Cavs.
They reference that here too with the Captain Freeman.
For Cavs.
But before we get off of before we get off of Captain Gomez, the other thing we get more evidence here that's been hinted at before, but I think we get a little bit stronger evidence here is Captain Freeman refers to Captain Gomez as her very old friend. And we know Gomez was posted on the Enterprise D. And we've had clues in the past that Captain Freeman, and by extension Mariner, may have been posted on the Enterprise D when Mariner was a young girl, because they both know Riker really well. I mean, like really well. They're very close to Riker. And there were a couple other things that I might be forgetting that sort of indicate that there's a good chance that Freeman was posted to the Enterprise D under Picard. During that regime, and this adds to that,
and then Deep Space Nine too, or at least Mariner was on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, Mariner was on Deep Space Nine. So the idea would be that Freeman would have been on the Enterprise D when Mariner was a child, basically.
Yeah, totally.
Which is one reason why Mariner may be fairly advanced when it comes to having encountered and dealt with various
or just kind of messed up.
Yeah, or kind of messed up. There are a couple other...
They did some fucked up shit on that show.
A couple other brilliant callbacks here. One of them is we get Ryan Ridley.
Yeah, on the comm badge.
Oh, yeah.
He's
Well,
at
no,
the
no,
end.
not only he is on the comm badge, but Ryan Ridley he's played this character. It became a joke in this one, right?
He was a comm badge that said, "Captain, a team from Starfleet Command is requesting to come aboard."
But that's not the main character he plays in this.
Doesn't he play like the Bajoran guy?
He plays the Bajoran guy who's always fucking in sickbay, who was in sickbay twice
I
before.
thought I was out.
He was in Envoys in sickbay when Rutherford was trying to, Rutherford was taking a turn trying to work in sickbay. He was just like trying to change his career, and he did a really bad
Those are
job.
my lithium burns.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh my god, how are you still alive?" So that was Ryan Ridley's. But it's the same character, and then later at the towards the end of this the first season, in No Small Parts, he is being tended to by Tendi, and he's injured again. And then it's like, okay, that's funny. Don't even really make the connection. And then with this third entry, he straight up is like, "Yeah, I don't know. I always end up in sick bay. I'm always getting fucking injured." And it's just Ryan Ridley has such a recognizable voice. If you're familiar with his work on Rick and Morty or on the Grandma's Virginity podcast or some of the other things.
There's something about him and Rutherford sounds slightly similar to me.
They're in the same.
close.
The actors.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
It's the same pitch, kind of.
Same vibe, same tonal qualities.
Speaking of
Timbre.
Timbre.
That's what I
Yeah.
was trying to say.
Speaking of Bajorans, I like how they finally summed it up for Shax, basically saying he's like, what were they talking about? How he was spiritually. He was talking about. He says that's what keeps me spiritually. He kept talking about him being spiritually centered,
Yeah.
basically.
And if he wasn't so spiritually centered,
That's what it was.
And fuck you up or some shit.
Yeah, right. At the end, when there was that, when they were arresting Freeman, he's straight up just like, "I'll kill you," and I like how they talked. They referenced that because I hadn't really thought about it too deeply, but it is kind of like, oh yeah, Bajorans are super spiritual, so you'd think they'd be all chill.
They're all feisty.
They're all
the time.
but now
They like to fuck shit up.
yeah, right. And is that because of the atrocities?
Yeah.
They're traumatized, and
Absolutely.
they have to be super strong and assertive. Like before, did their spirituality intensify during the occupation? Do you think that they used to be spiritually chill before the occupation?
Some of them were more spiritual, and
Or
some
do
of them became less spiritual. But they all kind of became like more feisty.
Right. So do you think Bajorans?
Except for those collaborators.
Do you think Bajorans?
Some of those Bajorans were collaborators.
Do you think Bajorans, like as a species, were always kind of? But do you think they were?
You're
this is a
asking
tricky
us to
ground.
suppose like sort of like historical and anthropological facts about a fictional race.
And I'm also talking about like the emotional tendencies of an entire species of people, which is dangerous.
You're trying to
Yeah, right.
generalize it to an entire planet.
Because we only know like 3 or 4 Bajorans. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, we know plenty, but we only know a few super well.
I know plenty of Bajorans.
So I'm
I know
just
thousands
well,
of Bajorans.
Just like you think
Yeah,
about
some of my best friends is Bajorans.
just how Vulcans, they used to be all super violent and stuff, and then they got their
Yeah.
shit under control. Do you think Bajorans before the occupation maybe were a little bit more spiritually chilled?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
All I know is that this particular Bajoran is very prone to injury. We've only ever seen him lying down in the med bay, which is pretty good. Lauren Lapkus is at this stage. She's Jennifer. She plays Jennifer, and started off as this sort of side character, and is slowly being elevated to almost a semi-regular star.
Your stupid little butt.
Yeah, that line was great. It was it was like, yeah, right. I bet you dream about me every night with your stupid little butt. It's such an. I don't know why it was just such a weird.
It was cute.
Awesome.
It's because it's cute. It's because and it's good foreshadowing for what we see at the end of the episode, where Mariner finally admits to Jennifer, saying like, "Look, I like you, and because I like you, I was mean to you and pushed you away because I'm childish." And it's a psychological defense mechanism.
Is she saying that she likes her?
Yeah, or does she like her?
Because we know
Yeah,
that
they're going on a date.
Mariner is kind of poly. So.
They're gonna go on. They're going on a date. Like next season, I guarantee
that's
you.
what's going on
I guarantee you, there's gonna be some sort of either individual dates or they'll try to go steady. I don't know.
Go steady.
Maybe they'll have one of them.
Whatever the term in the future is.
Them 3 ways with Boimler.
No.
one of those kids. What do kids call them these days? Three-ways.
Because they were both like, yeah, he's the
Back
best.
in my day, we just called it a normal way.
Menage a trois.
Do you think there's some rule?
The more the merrier.
Well, I guess that's the whole point of Rule 34 is if you can think of it, it's there. So I guess there's got to be some Boimler, Jennifer, Mariner. Oh, that's weird. Weirds me out to think about that, though.
Yeah, I
was
wasn't
like,
trying
I
to be
don't know.
like overtly.
Well, you said a three-way.
Randy, but like.
Yeah, but you started thinking about it.
I didn't mean
Well, he
like.
said
I didn't mean.
I said it as a result of him. I thought about it as a result of him
Hey,
saying it.
Jesse, you put those fucking
I didn't-
dirty, unclean thoughts in his mind.
I
Somebody
didn't mean
says
a three-way,
something to you.
three-way. I just meant that they would all go on a date together as a.
It's like
I
when
didn't
you're-
mean like they were gonna have three-way sexual relations.
It's like when you're around your friends and they start talking about their private parts. Automatically, the thought of their private parts enter your head. You're like, I don't want to think about that. You know what I mean?
I don't know that. I don't know what you're talking
That's the
about.
power of words.
This is the power of generalization.
So you're saying
No, words. It's very fucking common.
you're
Somebody's-
saying you don't want to picture our genitals?
Look, well, no, I didn't say that. First of all, I didn't say that, so don't be offended.
You're just like
But if you say maybe there'll be some three-way action, I'm not gonna have this graphic image in my head of them going at it like crazy, but I am gonna.
Yeah, but now
briefly
I do
think about
because
it.
of the weird hand motions you're making.
See, and that's the power of words and expression. And so now
And
you're the
and
pervert.
gesticulating.
So you were
I
calling me a
didn't-
pervert. Now you're the pervert. See, nobody's
I
at fault here.
I
didn't-
wasn't even
didn't-
trying to be that perverted.
And I didn't call you a pervert, and I'm perfectly fine thinking about these sorts of things. I'm happy to admit that I enjoy thinking about these things from time to time.
He was
It's the
trying to.
21st
he was-
century. Everybody seems to be a little bit like either way, and you know.
Patrick was trying to put me at fault for having a thought enter my
No,
head.
I thought it was great.
You were trying to shame me.
No,
no.
I would never sex shame you or anyone else.
Thought, sex, shame.
No.
Sex, thought, shame.
Thought,
Sex,
mind
thought.
shame.
I would encourage you to have all sorts of sexual thoughts.
You are conflicting in what you say and right now because you're trying to lather me up.
Work
So-
you into a lather like a bar of Ivory soap.
Write us in at feedback@itsgotstartrek.com and let us know how often you think about your friend's genitals.
And is Dan getting lathered up?
Maybe if I had some lava.
Dan is referencing lava soap with using a quote from Pulp Fiction. Some people who are not familiar with the lava soap, which is an industrial style soap that can get off any sort of goops and gobs.
I remember
on your
my
hands.
dad had some of that
Superfly
in the basement dungeon where you do all the work. You know, there was some of that powder stuff, and I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy."
It's like pumice.
I'll take your
They're like
skin right
volcanic
off.
It's like
sand.
hummus.
No, pumice.
Oh,
I wish it was like hummus.
I think it's got pumice in it. I think it's got chunks of volcanic rock in it, and that's how it works.
Does
as
hummus
magic.
have pumice in it?
no.
You could probably get pumice or pumice.
Can you get?
There's a
Hummus would make sense.
Can you get like red pepper pumice?
red pepper pumice.
I bet you could get that. Yeah. If not, there's got to be a
In
market
Hawaii.
for it. Yeah, that's the one place you can get it.
What's the deal with Class J planets?
What's the deal?
Class J. I know what a Class M is.
Class J is just another class, man. It's
Well,
probably,
yeah, I know, but
probably
that-
got like a bunch of fucking methane or some shit.
It's got meth. Yeah, it's got a gas.
Well,
Maybe Class J's have like a
nitro
hilarious amount of
oxygen.
oxygen. Like it's just
Like
ridiculous.
you just start laughing.
It's like you don't want to go there because you're like, hey, don't light a cigarette.
oh, there says
Fuck up the whole planet.
Maybe it's all nitrous oxide.
there's surfaces according to
just walk around talking to God all day.
this is from stexpanded.fandom.com, whatever that is.
Stex Panda?
Stexpanded.
Skeksis panties?
It says their surfaces are tenuous, comprised of gaseous hydrogen.
Skeksis, Nexies.
Their surfaces are tenuous, comprised of gaseous hydrogen and hydrogen compounds. So it's probably like Jupiter or something.
Jupiter.
You're more stupider.
Yeah, it's true.
What if it was like Uranus?
Butthole.
But so that's a class J. And then you think
I do.
Mm,
that solar flare that happened, that sun that's
Yeah, man.
You sound like you're telling a vaudeville joke.
So
Hey,
first of all,
it's a solar flare, you know?
Do tell, sir. Do tell.
so
Y'all heard about this? Everyone talk about this? Heard about this? You see this on the news, the solar flare?
yeah, that's
What do you think about it?
that's late night talk show hosts.
That
How
makes
likely do you think it is that a sun would just emit a flare that fucks up a nearby planetoid, just suddenly out of the blue. Like,
I don't know. They do that shit all the time.
Yeah, but wouldn't they have some kind of wouldn't there be some kind of calculations done based on the likelihood of that happening, so they could have that in the back of their head?
But then there would be no Star Trek stories.
Yeah, because we already looking at asteroids. We're already looking at things flying at our planet. We can be like, well, you know,
They said it was an unexpected flare. Maybe they were like, we got all the expected flares under control.
They
I was
also
like,
could have
whoa.
gone like some long way around the thing because it wouldn't have gone like it wouldn't have gone on like infinitely. They could have just gone around it.
And that's basically the joke that Cation made. Cation was like, you know, could we warp around it? And they're all like, fuck you, man. What the hell? You can't warp around it? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's like,
couldn't we just warp?
Yeah, I was confused by that scene because at first I thought
a suggestion.
I thought it was one of those scenes where somebody throws out an idea and then everyone starts throwing out ideas and it's chaos in the courtroom and you'd be like, order in the court or whatever. But no, everyone was just getting pissed off at Cation, which is
like, no, don't mention that. Don't mention that obvious thing that we could do that would resolve 80% of Star Trek stories.
I'm about to be asinine though and say that first of all they would figure out the calculations of the likelihood of something like that happening, because the chances that this happened while they're in there, the fucking universe is old as shit and huge. So it's literally, the chances are astronomical that a solar flare would happen like that.
They're truly cosmic.
At the same
and hit
time,
that unstable planetoid.
at the same time that they were there, they probably did have a calculation. The calculation was like there's 0.00001% or whatever, even less. You know
but
what I'm saying?
they did have the Cerritos wait out system though.
But that was so they didn't scare off the new planet people.
Yeah, true. That's right.
So
send them skittering.
And if this happened, would it have traveled so quickly, bits and all? You know what I mean? Like that, the flare hits the planet. 20 hours. I think it would take longer, but that's total ignorance on my part. I don't know, but you'd assume that an explosion like that would take a little longer than you're talking about days at least.
I mean, a flare wouldn't necessarily go that far, but. You know,
and the asteroids and the bits of planet flying, it takes speed of light still takes a long ass time to get places.
I think these are well observed.
That's a good point.
That's why these are well observed.
Well, I said it was asinine in the sense that it doesn't really matter.
It's not. No, I argue that it is not asinine. I think it may be semantic.
I'm totally asinine,
but I don't think it's asinine because asinine implies that it's kind of ridiculous and pointless or whatever. I don't think so.
It's more
these are absolutely. You can look at all these things, but this is Star Trek and not The Expanse. So this is not a single Star Trek episode that doesn't have something involved. For example, transporters or some other ridiculous thing.
Oh, it's a holodeck episode.
Replicators.
I don't think anything's going to go wrong with the holodeck.
Yeah, because it's like great technology.
Faster than light travel.
They keep holodecks around even though they occasionally threaten the whole ship.
And then there's the Picard maneuver that works for the, fighting the Ferengi, but they don't ever use it for other things for some reason, even though you'd think that would just be a constant thing they would be using, because the Picard maneuver relies on the fact of the speed of light. So you warp your ship a brief distance away and then you attack from a different angle and the ship still sees where you originally are, which does have some relation to real physics, except for the whole warping thing. But then why wouldn't that be a problem like all the time in Star Trek?
Yeah, everybody would be doing that.
They always talk about the other Picard maneuver where he pulls on his tunic.
Oh, I think we were going to say when he pulls his cock out.
Yeah, that one too.
Oh, when he pulls it down when he's sitting down. Yeah,
he pulls his pants down a little.
Yeah.
And he's like, oops.
Like, oh.
And he sort of giggles a little bit.
I read
and Riker puts his head in his hands.
I read somewhere once that back in like the Middle Ages or whatever, that there weren't pants. And so I don't know how true this is in some random book, but like you'd have some guy.
And you're using pants in the American sense of the term, where the Brits might call it slacks or trousers.
Yes.
Pants for them is what we call underwear.
Okay.
Or undies.
Okay, and they're not...
Or draws.
Look,
drawers, undies,
what they wore
underwear.
What this book said is they wore leggings.
Pantaloons.
What this book said is they wore a legging.
Oh, yeah. Like
so sometimes their dicks were always hanging out because they'd wear leggings and then a tunic over.
Yeah.
A tunic over.
Loose.
So their dicks were always hanging out.
It's not that much different than with the Scottish the kilt.
Well,
the kilt.
I feel it's a little different because
it's still just fabric hanging over your bare balls and your penis is pointed down for peeing.
Tunics are
Why are you saying it like that?
Tunic.
What do you call it?
A tunic.
Well, whatever you like to say, but
you're adding a flair to it. I'm not against it.
He's pronouncing it like a British person,
like a gentleman.
They make more of a T sound.
So they're probably short. They're much shorter than a kilt, I would imagine.
Your dick is shorter than a kilt. I hope, because otherwise you need a longer kilt.
Looks like we're gonna need a longer kilt.
ridiculous.
So there was during this whole explosion situations when the magnetized ionic plasma and the fragments overloaded the ship systems like an EMP or whatever.
Magnetized ionic plasma. What are you gonna do?
And so someone goes when we're on the Archimedes and someone's like, Captain, it's all down. And then that was her commanding officer.
Her first officer, played by Phil Lamar, by the way. Lamar
really?
plays Admiral Freeman, but we knew that, but he also plays the first officer, I believe, is not given a name in this episode.
He's very talented.
And there was like almost no comedy on the scenes on the Archimedes. It was like all real drama, except for that one thing where she was like, "I'll have a break in 7 hours anyway."
Yeah, that was
like,
good.
And he was like, "Oh, I see what you did there."
Yeah,
that was
like, "But in 7 hours, we'll be dead."
But and after the said that everything's down, one of the ensign, I think it was probably the same one who fell over, said, "But we're still moving." And then Captain's like, "Momentum plus the Laperian gravity." Well, that must have been for the audience's sake to like explain why they were still moving, because if you don't know that by the time you're out of Starfleet, that's fucked up, right? Like, if you don't understand how momentum in space works by the time you gravitate,
it's a classic TV thing.
Why were they on the bridge?
These classic TV, like when you're watching a hospital drama like ER or something, and one of the doctors is explaining like a very basic medical procedure to another doctor while they're doing it.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, just do this, that, and the other thing. It's like, well, of course. Why do you need to tell this guy that?
Yeah. So that was just.
But that explosion was cool, in part because the planetoid explosion obviously was a mirror of the Klingon moon Praxis exploding in Star Trek VI, and that shockwave that then hits the Excelsior, captained by Captain Sulu, right? And then in this one, it's an Excelsior-ish ship. It's the Obana class, which is a new upgraded, influenced by the Excelsior, kind of blended with the Sovereign class kind of ship.
I was mentioning last week how in the episode where there was the lower decks from different ships, in the Klingon one, and they showed it come by, it was like a cinematic introduction to the bird of prey ship with the lower decks. This whole episode, it was, I don't know if it was just me or like thinking that or what, just the whole thing all the shots felt so cinematic and awesome.
Oh no,
they were all
wonderful.
Amazing. All the shots felt like it was a fucking movie.
Well, and that was one. Well,
and then I started thinking about in the mess hall. I bet that view is awesome in the mess hall when you're floating in that space station and you're just like looking at all this like insights. Like I was just thinking about like that'd be awesome to sit there and look at all that shit.
When they exited the starbase, you had the classic like grand like exit where it was all like brum brum brum.
Yeah, exit music.
The doors open and they all go like sailing out.
Yeah, it was.
Like,
it was really
all
awesome.
of it was great. Oh, but at the same time as it was cinematic, and we'll no doubt mention some other examples well. No doubt. They also had these moments that were, I think, one moment in particular for me is, so first of all, we have this explosion, the shockwave, it hits the Archimedes exactly like it hits the Excelsior in Star Trek VI. But then after that, it shows the ship tumbling. And the way the ship is tumbling looks straight out of TOS. And not even like HD upgrade TOS, like old school TOS effects of like just a plastic model like flipping over. And then the music that all of a sudden it gets all TOS-y with this timpanis and deep timpanis and shit banging around, which was really cool. I like that. But for the cinematic stuff, my favorite cinematic moment was when Jennifer goes out and saves Mariner.
Yeah.
And there's that brief moment where the foreground is all in silhouette, and then and almost like a TAS episode, where you recall how the TAS episodes really make use of foreground silhouettes all the time of people like running around and doing stuff. But then the background is this glorious purple and space rocks and stars, and it was just like this beautiful image of Jennifer grabbing at Mariner and saving her.
Even in the introduction of the Archimedes coming out, just kind of flying out, it wasn't action packed and there wasn't a lot going on. It just had that feeling of you're out in the middle of space,
and it's similar to Star Trek 3 when and a lot of relations to Star Trek 3 there in the sense that the Enterprise, it's the reverse in Star Trek 3 where the Enterprise is trying to flee, and then Captain Styles, he's the one, they make a reference to, we could end up with a captain with a riding crop. That they're talking about Captain Styles, who's the asshole who runs the at that point it's the experimental transwarp capable Excelsior. But Scotty has sabotaged it, and so they're trying to come out and chase them, and it's a very similar shot, similar angle. And you have the smaller ship, and then this big behemoth of a ship coming out. It's just in the reverse order in that movie compared to this one. But yeah, a good visual visual callback, but really well represented in the animated form.
So they couldn't tractor beam because that'd bring the bad debris in it, which essentially would knock into them and cause. I wasn't clear if it would just hurt them, or they were saying
shut down all their power like it did
like
to
the EMP,
Archimedes,
like the EMP, and the deflector doesn't work because if they project any sort of energy field, it will draw the plasma to them too for some reason, whatever. So the response is to, of course, remove the plating. Now, I wasn't entirely clear on why removing the magnetic plating would help. I guess because then it wouldn't short. Would it not? It wouldn't short out their systems.
They were saying that they were susceptible to anything that had some sort of electromagnetic field was going to be susceptible to being damaged. The ship would be damaged because it would funnel the energy through that point.
Okay, so
the shields you can't use. You can't use the deflector. You can't use the magnetically charged.
So it's
plates.
not that the shields and the hull would get. It was the hull, right? Yeah. It's not just that the shield and the hull would get fucked up.
It would like fuck up the whole ship.
It would bring it. It would magnify and bring it into the ship. So they had to remove.
But by getting rid of them, they could turn everything. The point they were making is everything else they can turn off. But the magnetic hull plates, they couldn't turn off.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Because they're just naturally magnetic.
Are they going to be able to get those back? Are they going to have to get... Somebody's going to have to bring them new ones?
They're always...
No, they have to throw away the whole ship. They can't... Scotty can't fix it.
Starfleet ships are one and done. That's how they work.
When Scotty couldn't fix that.
Naked Cerritos.
You notice how their ships, isn't
it already a Cerritos A?
It might be.
You notice their consoles, I've said this before, aren't
maybe not, I guess not.
They're not modular. They just built into the wall. So if something's old, you just throw away the ship. And there was that episode
I think it's fairly modular.
And there was what Scotty was saying that one time in that one episode of that one show. He was like, I don't think I can fix this. And that's, if Scotty can't fix it, well, you throw it away, right?
Yeah, but Geordi can fix it.
Yeah, wasn't that an episode of TAS? I think it was an episode of TAS where Scotty was it TAS or was it man? Now I can't remember. You got me thinking about which episode that was where Scotty. Because I remember Scotty was like, I can't do it. It's like with those rare times where you're like, what the fuck, Scotty? You're not supposed to say that.
You can write in about that.
But no, Jesse, I was actually going like that's exactly what pops into my head always though is like how do they fix these things? They never really talk about it, and they must be fucking crucially expensive.
Yeah, they'll drag them back to space dock. They got replicators.
Speaking of dragon,
they don't have like resources. Yeah. Dragon blood.
That was an expletive. It's dragon's blood. Dragon's blood.
Yeah, that was really good.
So, when they took the plating off, I saw that one tweet. The guy said it was naked. To me, it more looked like it didn't have any skin, and all you could see was its muscles and tendons of the ship, basically.
That's a worse image.
Yeah, that's
you're right, 100%.
It looked like it was skinned, and there was not that it was naked. It's just you could see all its grossness underneath. All its because bodies are gross, and you should be ashamed of them all.
Remember that guy's Slim Goodbody, and he had that just like a leotard thing, but it had like a picture of like your organs and stuff. And
is that he had a name? My mom had one of those Grey's Anatomy books that we talked about this before, but where there's
a character on educational television.
Oh, did he walk around say like, "Hi, I got no skin," like that kind of deal?
I just looked at Playboys at friends' houses. Friends' dads would have Playboys.
It's because you're much cooler and much more.
This was something at school. It was not.
You can take a Playboy.
Pure interest.
Well, it's like a Playboy, except it's an extra layer of clothing taken off.
Yes.
Wait, what is this?
Take it all off.
What is this Slim Goodbody? Was it a
something
walking
on like PBS?
And it was like a walking body with muscles.
It was a dude in a leotard, but his leotard had like hearts and lungs.
So if you poured lemon juice on it, it wouldn't freak out or anything.
No, or salt. He was fine.
Okay. Slim Goodbody.
He could go out in the sun and stuff.
He's so full of himself.
That's some fucked up weird shit.
He was covered with himself.
So,
all right. Any other major points here? Because there's a ton of odds and ends in this episode. I think the main thing I wanted to talk about is the whole the character arc things and as well as like the cinematography and stuff, which you've touched base on already.
Spacewalking rules.
Oh yeah. Well, again, all these little bits and pieces that are good in there, like the removal of those panels mimics the removal of the Borg-infested deflector dish in First Contact.
Yeah.
But
funny things they have to turn and pull out.
It's ridiculous.
What's the rubber ducky room?
Oh yeah, I was wondering that too. That was one of mine. I wanted to know
about that.
I've
known about that for many years.
No.
Due to high levels of nerddom.
Oh no.
Long story short, but I'll manage to make it long.
All right.
One way or the other. So don't fret out there.
All
audience.
right.
What are you worried about?
Yeah, don't even worry about it. On TNG, they often had those background schematics of the Enterprise or
is this
of
like
other
an
things.
Easter egg kind of deal?
And Michael Okuda and his wife and other people who worked on the design stuff, they knew certain things just weren't going to show up in standard definition TV.
Right.
So they put a lot of the rooms in the ship have funny things in it. Like there's one room that has like just a sports car in it, just sitting in there. And they just have weird rooms like that. And there's one room on the Enterprise. It's like a big warehouse room, and it just has a giant rubber duck in it on the schematic.
Okay.
And so ever since then, people figured that out through various means, and they started calling it the rubber ducky room. And when they were filming it, if there were close-ups, they would put black tape over it so you wouldn't see it, like if it was close up.
But they still left it there just for funsies. Like, they didn't. They could have avoided that by not putting it there to begin with.
But in the HD transfers, it's easier if you look at screenshots.
Right.
You can just do a search for Rubber Ducky Room Enterprise D. But that's what it was. And so now that's one of the things they reference. It's similar to the Cetacean Ops, which was originally a Starfleet technical manual thing, and then you saw like a door that said Cetacean Ops, but you didn't get to look into it. Then other people started referencing it.
The technical manual had Medusans were involved with the navigation.
Whoa.
I might be wrong about that, but I
crazy.
think that was the
Like
deal.
Gorgon Medusans?
It was a species, and they were sort of like
Gormaganders?
they were sort of like
Gorgonzola
It
Medusas?
was the same concept where you couldn't look at them for some reason because they were all terrible. But so they were sequestered in their own part of the ship in the funny chamber, and they did the same. I think they did the same kind of stuff that the Cetacean fellows do.
Interesting. So I knew that they put funny random stuff on the computer screens, but I was not aware that the rubber ducky thing. I usually just thought it was funny words they
Look
put
at
on
a
there.
screen cap. It's amusing to look at, the
It
Rubber
does sound-
Ducky screen cap.
That should be the screenshot for one of the teasers. Can be a rubber ducky.
Rubber ducky.
Rubber Ducky.
And instead,
you're
they
so
went to
fun.
for some reason they went to the captain's yacht with some ice cream. Like they just randomly had some ice cream cones. Like where'd they get those? I mean, they replicated it but
Along
it's just,
the way.
Along the way, they just had some ice
I
cream.
did like Tendy's line. I was like, do they always come here to fight? Do you think that's why it's off limits? It's like that's why the captain's yacht is off limits, because she wants to fight with her daughter there.
I like the ballroom dancing competition
Yes.
postponement scene.
Throwing those shoes fucking down. She's like, fuck this.
Yeah, I think she got all pissed off when the official word came out that it was canceled. It's like they knew
Oh, just postpone.
Well,
Yes.
postponed, whatever.
Yeah, you're
but
right,
like,
you're
that's
right.
even better though, because like it's postponed. It's not even canceled. It's postponed. But it's like they knew it was going to happen because of what she did.
happened?
They knew it was going to be postponed. Like, what did they think they were going to finish that real quick and then put the plating on, take the plating off? But part of them still, the girl especially, part of her still held out some bit of hope that it was still going to happen. She was still waiting to hear.
Maybe they'll say this. It's okay for the ballroom competition to still go on, because that's important.
Like, yeah, right. Why would they still think there'd be a chance that it would continue? And didn't they want to help anyway? And isn't that irrelevant, because weren't they just commanded to help right away? But maybe they'll push it off and had to wait for that words. And then did you notice there was some Kelsey Grammer looking guy in the corner?
No, I didn't. That's awesome.
Yeah, there was
like Captain Bateman.
I don't know if that's who it was supposed to be, and I don't even remember if he had a mustache and beard or not. But it looked like Kelsey Grammer to me.
Did it look like a young Kelsey Grammer?
It looked like
early,
a young,
early Cheers.
Yeah.
Kelsey Grammer.
But a little bit, you could tell the hair was receding, but it was long.
Yeah, so early Cheers,
Yeah,
Kelsey
early
Grammer.
Yeah.
Jennifer's helmet had little Andorian extender things for her antennae.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, so she had the same outfit as everyone else was wearing the same.
And Cetacean Ops
suits.
aren't flipper accessible yet. You know?
Well, it's not that Cetacean Ops aren't. It's just that something that was located in there wasn't.
right.
So that's not good on Starfleet in terms of accessibility.
and it's just practicality. I mean, you have things that are made to go underwater. Why not?
Like, why is that thing down there?
Yeah.
Like, why is that thing?
If they
down
can't access?
there? Come on.
Come on.
Dr. Tana can smell Tendi. She keeps sniffing.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's like, when she's looking for Tendi, or when like Tendi was outside of sickbay, like she was all like,
Yeah. Oh, there, and then she does another cat joke.
Yeah, she does.
As we referenced
Yeah.
before, somebody was like, "These cat jokes are going to get old," and it's like, nope,
No.
they still not. Now she's hugging Tendi and purring.
Yeah, at first she was all hesitant, and then when she gave in,
Okay.
then it's
Yeah.
like she smiled, but then the purring kicks in. You're like,
Just like a real cat.
Yeah.
Like a real
It's
cat
like, I'm
decides
okay,
they once they decide they're cool with it, they start purring.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing it right.
it's funny
If
that
you don't have this experience with your cats,
you broke your cat.
sorry.
You need a dog.
you need to do something different.
You need to get a snake.
And it's too late now because cats aren't known for changing.
I really liked when the Cerritos. This episode, we probably haven't stressed enough that since we were spending a lot of time breaking things down, but it was an emotional episode. I mean, I teared up at a couple points, and one of those points was when the Archimedes is about to crash. It's going into the atmosphere, and then all of a sudden, it's like boom, that blue light happens, and then one of the crew members points out the window and says, "It's the Cerritos," and that's exactly what happened when in the first season finale, I think it was Boimler, when the Titan comes to save the Cerritos, and I think it's Boimler's like, "It's the Titan," looking out the window, same angles and everything almost, and. Not only was that cool, but I think why it struck an emotional chord is in that instance, the Cerritos was in trouble and getting rescued by the Titan, but now the Cerritos is in the role of the rescuer.
Yeah, and
they've grown over the course of the season.
Yeah, I thought it did a good job when it finally got the tractor beam on the Archimedes. It did a good job of wow, it's like everything's relaxed now. But then you're just thinking, wow, that Cerritos, the Cerritos just went through some pro level shit to get to do and save the fucking day.
And you see that on Captain Freeman, who is like they've saved the day and she is slumped over.
Yeah, it's not some run of the mill
relief. It's just
yeah, it's not some run of the mill. Did my job, save the day. It was like heroic. And shit. Yeah, and why does command like super consistency with its Cali class? The way I interpreted that is that's command's way of saying, because remember they said when Freeman was like Sergeant
Bilko.
Captain Gomez says,
Sergeant Gomez.
Captain Gomez.
Gomez Adams.
Captain Gomez.
Is this a new game?
Captain Gomez says to Freeman, she says to Freeman,
Morgan Freeman?
she says, "You're going to miss your crew." And Freeman basically says, "Oh, what? I can't bring my officers senior staff with me." And then she goes, they like to be consistent with Cali class. The way I read that, it's the command's way of saying that Command only trusts itself when promoting from Cali class, meaning they don't trust. They ultimately don't trust Cali class stuff, and they don't even trust its own captain to promote them because the captain would have an emotional attachment. They still look down on Cali class, and Gomez had a nice way of putting it. It's like, I know Cali class doesn't mind getting its hands dirty. And that was actually a nice way. She wasn't being.
Didn't she say nacelles dirty or something along those lines?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Getting your Boussard scoops dirty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you could read that as
classic case of dirty Boussard scoops.
Tarnishing your deflector dish.
You could read that as a backhanded compliment, but I didn't really get that from her.
No. She meant it sincerely. And I think you're absolutely right that there is clearly, we get more and more of these hints about how the California class is viewed. I mean, they're not even hints. I mean, they're fairly overt in some ways.
I mean, when Billups freaks out, he was talking about what Cali class can do just...
And the thing is that I also think there's potentially a practical perspective as well, because they refer to the California class as one of the workhorses of the fleet, and you think, okay, yeah, they're assigning the competent people. They're doing there's a particular range of jobs they want them to do. They want them to get good at it. No, a lot of other people don't want to do those assignments, and we'll put people who are. You could see a management theory that's put people who are competent enough to do that work, but are not so competent that we'll have to worry about transferring them elsewhere.
Yeah.
Those aren't the people we're looking for. We pull from other places when we need the people on the top ships.
Right. We don't want someone taking risks and doing something crazy and heroic. We just want something that we know can predict exactly what it's going to do.
So I can understand that from an organizational perspective. Not that I would agree with it necessarily, but I can understand the organizational justification for having that sort of a stable ship, which is probably why Captain Freeman was always worried about, trying to show her value as a captain to get a promotion, because we can presume maybe it's somewhat rare for California class captains to get promoted to higher class ships.
I like the Rutherford's error message he got on his screen, because it's such an arbitrary
typical computer memory leak type thing.
And it was like he was full on storage, but the memory the error was isolinear override surge detected, bypass gamma bracket variance 408, then a bunch of string of numbers 408-218-11300. And I wonder if that number actually is significant to the writers in some way. Who knows? But But that somehow indicates low storage space, and yeah, that's a typical sort of like computer giving you just this completely mysterious, enigmatic message that has nothing.
It's like, what are you telling me?
Yeah.
Do you
Like,
think
this thing failed to do this?
I noticed that they have Captain Gomez is seen most of the time. She has got a mug, and I've got to presume that she's got like a mug of hot chocolate all the time. Right, because
right.
you know,
Oh,
Janeway's
right.
always drinking coffee,
probably.
and Picard has his Earl Grey tea. Cisco likes his Ractigino and his special weird floppy little Ractigino mug with the wide bottom that is awesome.
Ractigino.
I think
I always
because
think of,
the
like-
gag with Gomez is the spilling hot chocolate on Picard. I like to imagine that she developed some psychological thing where now she has to always have hot chocolate to prove she's in control.
It's like her armor.
It's like as
See,
long
I'm
as
not-
it's not spilled,
I'm not spilling it.
Yeah.
she's doing all right.
I'm
Yeah.
on the bridge and I'm not spilling.
I'm down with that. Totally down with that. Whenever I think of Ractigino, see, there's this game Borderlands where these bats are called racks, and so when I think of Ractigino, I think of some kind of like,
Bat juice coffee.
yeah,
A
basically
squeezed bat, like you just wring out a bat
yeah, basically, yeah.
into a cup.
Yeah, basically.
It is Klingon coffee. Who knows how they make it? Maybe it's like civet coffee, except it's like Klingons eat coffee beans and poop them out,
Oh yeah,
or targs,
And then they add a little extra bat
or grishnas,
squeezy at the
or
end.
whatever. Grishnacks.
Add a little bat squeezy, a little rack squeezy. Yeah.
It's like you get
Rack to squeeze
Yeah,
out.
you'll get a gin and tonic with like a squeeze of bat.
Yeah.
Just a squeeze of bat.
A zest.
I like
A little bat zest scraped off the bat leathery
Scrape.
bat wing.
Yeah.
every week it's with the food on this show because Tendi is she's for the big dinner for Freeman leaving. She's like, I hope they have fajitas every week. It's with the food. But last week it was taco salad.
They're usually eating like Mexican food, but they're like not fajitas. Fajitas is like, you know, that's the next level of Mexican food.
Right, yeah, and then it's always every single week. There's some kind of callback to that, which is an interesting sort of seemingly like kind of like why did they pick that, but they did, and it's funny, and I like it.
Mariners, when she encounters Jennifer at the beginning of the episode, she's just carrying a case of Romulan ale.
Yeah, that's
What appears to be Romulan
that
ale.
is a good point. Yeah,
And she gets mad. She's like, "Don't tell anybody. Don't tell Commander Ransom I've got contraband."
it is good. It's like a Bart Simpson moment almost, where it's just like the random episode she's carrying some like bunch of Romulan ale, and you don't really question it. You're just
it's
she's
like,
just
this is
getting
what she
into
does.
it.
And and nobody says anything about it. Like even Jennifer's like, I don't care about you.
Yeah,
I don't
but
even
she
think
does.
about you.
Yeah, they think about each other
bet
because
they do.
they hurt each other's feelings. Well, Jennifer's feelings were hurt, and Mariner is closed off.
Yeah.
That sucks to express love by pulling yourself away from people, but it's it happens.
She's got some issues that
She's working through.
I like more Billups. I like that Billups gets more and more stuff every week, like to talk about the waitress.
That's right.
Because we've known people
She seems like
that.
really attentive.
She's a waitress.
Yeah, I think she was really into me.
And what I liked about that too is that we've seen in previous episodes this season, they've developed a very strong argument that Billups is ace or asexual.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
But what's good about this is that this, if that's the route they're going, they're also demonstrating the fact that there's a common misconception that if people are asexual, that automatically means they don't have relationships with people, which is not necessarily the case. There are many people who identify as asexual who do in fact want to have intimate relations with people, just not necessarily as intimate as some other people might be going for, right? So my point is that it does not go against that characterization to have Billups be, maybe interested in having some connection with somebody like a waitress who's being nice to him.
Billups is always so.
Why would you be nice to him if you don't have money in a society, though?
But maybe it's making him worried because if somehow she tricks him into getting it on, then it's all over.
Oh, then he has to become
king.
Yeah, Billups. He's so sad. Like he's always this kind of like sympathetic, kind of like you want to pet him or something. Because there was a scene after the rubber ducky thing, and they go back to Freeman's office where they're all pissed about like not getting promoted, and Ransom's just straight up going, "Not fair, not fair. That job is mine. That job is mine." And Billups is going, "Oh, I don't want to do it, Captain." Like, if you listen back, those are the two things going on
I also
there.
like Ransom's line is like, "You have to take me. I'm your first officer. I agree with everything you say." It's like, that's not what you're supposed to do.
Right, yeah.
You're a bad first officer. Come on.
Riker from the very start with Picard was saying...
Picard made a big deal about it. He's like, he picked him because Riker like punched his previous captain in the face.
Yeah, and Riker was like, "Can I speak candidly?" And Picard's holding his tea, going, "Of course." and then Riker is, of course, going like, you should.
Riker's just playing a trombone.
This is how I speak candidly.
You should try this new game.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, number one.
I have a question. I have a couple questions. One question I have is, and these are speculative questions. Speculative question
Speculative question.
Speculative
Question of a question.
Number one.
Speculative question.
What do you think Jet Manhaver, Ensign Jet Manhaver is talking to Dr. Miglimo about?
I don't know, because he was totally chillaxing in that shot. He all had his feet kicked back and
He was
his
doing
arms
some
were
proper
up.
counseling, but I wonder what he was talking about.
I want to know too. Yeah, I was thinking exactly.
Why does
like,
that guy have to go to counseling?
Like they,
Which is no problem. It's fine if he does. But it makes you intrigued.
No, of course.
Yeah.
It's like ooh, is he dealing with an issue or is his issue that he's so fucking awesome? He's like, I don't know how to deal with it, Dr. Miglimo.
Yeah,
he's so fucking awesome. I'm Jet Manhaver.
They put enough thought into making him have this sort of pose where he's got his arms up and his feet back, and then when the captain talks, his ears perk up. You can tell something's going on simply by his position.
Yeah. And he wasn't lying down. He wasn't crying or sobbing into something. You're right. They're very careful about how they do the characterization, even just in how people are positioned. All right. So that was speculative question number one. Speculative question number two is, why the fuck is maintenance hatch 788 always fucking warm to the touch? That seems like that would be a problem.
Yeah, right.
When
your
electronics just warm to the touch, it was
burning.
hot.
She's like, it's always warm, and then it burns her.
And they were just like, ha 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 afterwards, but she's clearly has burn marks on her hand. But
her hand was smoking.
Yeah, it was smoking, and that was fucked up, man. Like she touched a grill or something. But the first thing I think of is some kind of electrical sort of like grounding issue or something's going on.
If I'm in my car and I'm like, oh yeah, just don't touch the glove compartment because it'll burn you. But don't worry about it. Just don't touch it.
Maybe she's got that juice that keeps the burn away.
What? Aloe vera? You're making a joke because she's green? She's got filled with aloe vera.
She's got that Orion juice. She's
man, she's filled with aloe vera.
No, it's not the aloe vera. It's the other, the various pheromones and stuff.
Wait, with the pheromones, how are the pheromones going to keep her from getting burned?
It's got some kind of magical.
I like the idea that there's a new way to discriminate against Orions. You're like, you're full of aloe vera.
I like the fact that I invented that in my own mind. Yeah. Then accused Jesse of coming up with that.
Yeah.
I was just talking about pheromone juice.
Yeah. Projecting.
But
no, it's not projecting.
She said she's not that kind of.
Just saying. I was implying. I was asking if he said it, thus implying that he was the one. I was asking whether or not he meant
you were projecting responsibility onto him.
Yes, not on purpose, but it was a subtle manipulation.
It was just part of your personality.
Write us in at feedback@it'sgotstartrek.com to let us know if it is racist to think that Orions are filled with aloe vera juice. I vote for yes.
I say it's specious.
Yeah.
I think it is prejudicial.
It's troubling. It's troubling.
Unless
it's problematic, as they say.
And because this is Star Trek, we have to allow for the fact that maybe they do, in fact, maybe that's true. Scientifically, in Star Trek science.
But if they did, it's good to have an Orion around.
Yeah, you just snap one of her fingers off and squeeze some juice.
You get burned.
And it doesn't bother that much. It'll probably just go back.
Dry skin and get some eczema.
The medical roster, all the names that went through, because Rutherford was looking through the list, because Tendi thought she was off the ship. All those names. There was Tanowski. It was actually really hard to get to stop on time for that one, because that one flew right off the screen every time I hit pause.
It's a sneaky Polish name. That's why.
That's why. That's why.
Not that the Polish are sneaky.
Just the name.
Just that particular name.
Just that name and its placement on the list. There was Teagarden, Teague, Tegtamir, Tirani, Tempest, Telman.
That last one sounded like a Tempest. Sounded like a Vulcan name.
It was TE_MPEST.
Could be.
Telman, Tennyson. Now these two are interesting. There's Terhar, which is TER HAAR, and then there's Ter Essie, which is TER ESI. So Ter Essie has an apostrophe after Ter. Terhar has no apostrophe. Oh, and now we're at it. Tempest has an apostrophe before Mpest. So there's a before, middle, and after.
Might just be pronounced Teresa.
Oh yeah. Is it like that? What was that Key and Peele sketch with the substitute teacher? He's pronouncing all the kids' names wrong.
Aaron.
Yeah, right.
Oh, Shag Hennessy.
Was it?
Yeah, Principal O'Shag Hennessy.
And then the last one is Tashime or Tashime or Tashime. I don't know. Tashime. I don't know.
The Archimedes shuttlecraft is named Adonis, which harkens back to the TOS episode, Who Mourns for Adonis? Where Adonis does not appear, because I think you meet Apollo or whoever instead. The other thing about a shuttlecraft is, I'm pretty sure it's every episode, but it's certainly almost every episode in season 2. We see the Sequoia shuttlecraft, which is the one they were working on all throughout the first season. Now, unlike the first season, in that season, they're working and fixing the Sequoia the whole season, and then at the end of the season, it plays a vital role in the plot of that episode. But then they get it back, and now they haven't shown them fixing it as much this season. It's just always in the background when they're hanging out in that particular hangar bay. So I thought it might be that they have to pull it out of mothballs or something, but they did not yet. But they still are showing it, and it's you can always tell because of that little childlike handwriting they wrote the name on it with.
I find myself sometimes going, Jay Quellen. Jay Quellen. That was from the Key and Peele. It was like Jacqueline. Jay Quellen.
That's I forget a lot of them. That is one of them.
That is a good one.
Rutherford. There was one line he gave that was kind of groaned because it was so cheesy somehow. Just the whole presentation of it. It was when he can't see anything and Tendy was like, "I'll lead the way," and he goes, "Yeah, that's an okie dokie from me." And
that's his catchphrase, okie dokie.
Yeah, but I know. And this is the way he
okie dokie.
The way he said it was just kind of like
okie dokie.
You know. And I can't say it was. I can't bring myself to say that it was like cheesy and terrible because I'm just going to assume that's what they were going for.
Because you're in love with Rutherford and you just can't criticize him.
That's
just how he is. And so, but even if they did it on purpose and meant for him to sound exactly
on porpoise.
Yeah, belugas, porpoise, cetacean ops.
Did you do it on beluga?
About it.
So when, even if that's exactly how they meant for him to present that line, even if it was. That's the point of the joke, because it sounded so cheesy. I still hear it and go like, ugh, inside. Like
that's
my body
good.
goes, ugh.
It's good. It's good for entertainment to affect you.
Yeah, it doesn't all have to be laughs and giggle puffs.
Yeah,
some of it can be extreme discomfort.
Some of comedy is feeling bad.
Yeah, that's true. What do you know it's good if you never feel bad?
What a profound statement. The in-arm joystick, like the in-share joystick is that Ransom uses to guide the ship. That's basically the same as what Riker did in Insurrection. I think it was Insurrection, right? When he has to like fly the ship all manually with a joystick.
It's been I guess that was because that's the only one I can't remember which one it is in, and Insurrection is probably the one I've seen the least amount of.
Yeah.
Followed, by Nemesis, but Insurrection was just so bland, I thought.
I don't think I saw either one of those.
So they were able to take off the hull plating. That's what he was doing. So he's like, got to see it somehow because their view screen didn't work. So they had to take the hull plating off so he could basically look out the window and steer. Is that the deal?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll just look out the hole.
Because when they turned off the power, there would be the view screen would be just black.
I bet you the captor of Harry Mudd, that dude with his little ass view screen, I bet he didn't have that option. I bet he couldn't take off some plating and look out the window. And remember that?
It'd probably be, if he could, it would be a much more manual process.
Yeah. Talking about
the Tellarite fella?
Was he Tellarite in the Discovery short trek? Yeah, that guy.
Which we talked about in episode 90 something, maybe? No, 80 something? I don't know. It's not too far back.
It's cool how spaceships are always all manual, though. You can adjust them all to hell. You can be like, I'm going to take some power from here and put it there. And the ship, I shouldn't do this because the ship might fall apart. But at least, the ship might fall apart if you configure it in a certain way. But what I like is that they have the option. They can do whatever the fuck they want.
It's the golden age of science.
I liked when Boimler has to dive into the pool. He starts doing all these floppy diver style exercises, and then he just jumps in feet first.
Yeah. I didn't notice.
It's dive in. He's he didn't dive in. He just jumped in.
I gotta watch that again now. There was that's an order alert when Freeman tells Mariner, she goes, "Get off my yacht." That's an order, but that wasn't appropriate. That's an order because she wasn't saying blah blah blah. That's an order. Save yourself. Leave me to die. That's an order. It was a true get the fuck out of here. That's an order. I am your captain.
There's a couple that's an order.
So it was an acceptable that's an order situation.
So a reminder to the audience and to bring we have a lot of new audience members.
I hope so.
To bring them up to speed in case you haven't listened to the full back catalog of the It's Got Star Trek podcast. Dan has a particular, what do you want to call it? Just you find
it's sort of not quite a pet peeve, maybe, but it's
a pet. The pet peeve's pretty good. A distaste for
distaste is probably better.
the television trope of somebody of a commanding officer saying blue, blue, blue. That's an order.
Yeah, usually associated with the commanding officer being selfless and trying to sacrifice themselves in order to save the other person, and they give them an order to save themselves.
What about permission to speak freely?
No, that's probably different. I don't think that's
what do you think. How do you feel about that?
I have no opinion on that. It seems excessive, but Dan lets you know something's happening.
Dan has this issue. Now, I'll point out that Dan is whenever this comes up in Star Trek, and it comes up rather frequently in Star Trek, and as you now know, we've done 99 episodes of this show. Dan is always bringing this up. Almost in every case when Dan brings this up, it's to point out that it is not an example that goes against his rule.
Well,
which is fine. I just find that mildly entertaining.
Well, keep note that I every time I hear it, I bring it up.
Yes.
So it's not. And
I want you to keep bringing it up.
It's not any kind of and I think at first I was seeing it more going against what I like. And lately, though, they've been more acceptable. You're right. Yeah. There's been a trend towards a better usage of that. So somebody must be listening to our podcast up there.
Somebody up there likes us.
And they're going back in time and editing episodes of Star Trek from the 60s, the 80s, the 90s.
No, because those ones were always guilty of that shit.
No, but
the newer ones are less guilty of it.
You've brought it up on older, like Deep Space Nine and stuff, and been like, okay, it's okay in this kind
until I see evidence, and I'm not saying that we'll prove it. I'm just saying I don't have any evidence to suggest that.
I will take that extra step and say prove it. And I will ask our audience, please go back and listen to the It's Got Star Trek podcast from the beginning and mark down any time that Dan has brought this particular issue up, and then provide us a brief, I don't know if you want to do like a table or an Excel spreadsheet or something. And then for each instance, mark down whether or not Dan thought it was an acceptable use of it or not. And then you can email it to us.
Make a game of it.
We'll look at it. Ideally, you will have collated and put together all the descriptive statistics and stuff so we can just read it and then make a determination. And then what we can do is we can revisit this periodically as the years go by.
I suspect that there's some temporal bias going on because recently it has been better, but I feel like there's been overall more.
I'm also merely making the point that you saying recently is confusing given that our podcast jumps around to all the series throughout all of Star Trek time, and we don't do them in like an order.
Not at all.
I think
so. We're not only doing recent episodes,
but I feel like it's always the recent ones that are getting.
That's why I'm saying we got to do some scientific studies. But we're the three of us are extremely busy, so we're going to offload this work onto the audience.
Cool, definitely do it for us.
I'm not that busy.
All they got to do is
you guys are busy.
All they got to do. No, you're too busy for this. All the audience has to do is go back and listen from the beginning, and listen intently. Because if you miss it, that's going to be a problem. That's going to fuck up the data set, right?
Yeah,
so you might have to listen to each episode a couple times.
Bad data is worse than no data.
100% agree, sir.
It's like lore. You don't want lore when you can have data.
Bad lore is worse than no lore.
That was a joke.
I know. It just took me for a moment to parse it because I figured you were making a lore data joke, but then I was trying to be like, wait. Lore. Lore.
That's also a word.
How does lore differentiate from data? The antiquated use of lore is essentially equivalent to data. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's pretty brilliant considering I came up with that joke after I gave the premise. I didn't intend to make that a joke, and I just did it the last second.
You're comedy. You're Mr. Comedy.
You're Mr. Comedy, and I 100% agree with your self-assessment that you're brilliant.
Oh, wow.
I 100% agree. Okay, last few odds and ends before we close things down.
I think that's it.
I like the Boimler saying, I saw a koala, which is a callback to Moist Vessel from the first season when Tendi fucked up that guy's ascension. I think his name was like Lieutenant Connors, I think was his name.
That sounds right.
The James Horner style music that when Boimler was like drowning, like his helmet was filling up, it was playing like I can't mimic it, but like it's the same music that plays in Star Trek 2 when Kirk successfully drops the Reliant shields and Khan is all looking around like, I don't know what to do, and he's like, raise them, he's trying to get the shields up, and the camera's all whipping around the control panel because he doesn't know exactly what to do, and it's playing that like tinkly like strings music that's all like, and it's scales that are just like hyperactive scales just going like up and up and up and up and up and up and up, and you're like, what the fuck is gonna happen? Very James Horner. I like that. And then probably the last thing was that really I thought was great was the very last shot where the camera is pulling back from the mess hall. You see all the people looking out the mess hall window at Captain Freeman's. She's on, I think it's a Nova class ship, whatever the Starfleet security took her on. And she warps away. And then the camera pans out and it's almost identical, just reverse to the opening shot, like at the beginning of The Cage, the original pilot for TOS, where it zooms in on the bridge of the Enterprise and there's like a cutout hole, and it's like as if you can see the crew sitting in there and the camera just zooms in.
Really
it's basically the reverse of that. And not only that, but I watched it 3 or 4 times and more. I watched the episode 3 or 4 times, but then I actually kept rewinding this one part because when you watch The Cage, because it's old technology and camera rigs where they're trying to push the camera forward, there's a few herky jerks, you can tell where it got caught on the carpet or something when they're moving it forward. And it looks like they mimic in the animation, which is normally so smooth and so excellent because this is modern top rate animation. It looked like there was a little herky jerk as the camera's pulling back. That sort of mimic that. Now,
that's pretty neat.
I could be imagining this because I might have a hyperactive imagination.
You might.
I might be giving too much credit to Mike McMahan and friends.
It's better than a hypoactive imagination.
It's better than not giving enough credit to Mike.
I agree on all these points. But audience, take a look at that scene and see if you see that herky jerk motion. Go load up the cage. It's right at the beginning of the cage. Zoom in the cage. Zoom out in this case. Push in and pull back. Pull out. Pull out. Pulling out doesn't always work.
Yonder and close.
That reminds me. I was thinking. So when she gets arrested or whatever, that Ransom and Shax and all them, they of course think it's a load of hooey, right? Because they're there and they're like, this is a load of hooey. But then when she leaves and the crew just sees her in cuffs, I wonder if part of the crew is thinking
Dr. Migley-Mo's like, yeah, she fucking did it.
Well, see, they don't even know what she's accused of. All they know is she's arrested.
She's totally. So we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah. So as far as if they were in the room with her, they'd probably be like, oh, this is horse shit. But since they don't even know what happened,
this is horse shit.
But since they,
Billups is saying this is bullshit.
So when she was leaving, they didn't even know what she was accused of. So there's a good chance that a lot of them are just like, oh wow, she fucked up. She's a bad person. But it can't be true. This is a real bummer, because it's like
that's a bummer, man.
Because they might have thought she actually did something.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
I like that Freeman Day is for calves.
Yes, yeah,
that was
great joke.
Then there was also I love how they're trying to save him. They go, his blowhole's broken.
Yeah.
Don't let him dry out. Spray him with water.
Yeah,
they're so scared for Boimler.
I laughed out loud. I mean, I laughed at all of that, but his blowhole is broken. Yeah, talking about imagery being shoved into your head. Something about that abstractly was hilarious.
When Captain Gomez told everyone to go to the back of the ship and they might survive, I don't see that at all. I don't know.
It's like an airplane.
Yeah, she's just being nice.
She's just being nice. Yeah.
It's like a placebo.
It's just so they could have the crew be valiant and be like, no, we're staying up with you.
What if it just kind of flips around? How are those things weighted in gravity?
I guess once it hit the atmosphere, the aerodynamics probably pointed it in a certain direction.
It's going to be on fire anyway.
That's true.
It's all going to be on fire.
Slowly roasted to death and then crushed.
Sort of meta thing that happened where I was like, whoa. When Freeman and them get down to the Lapirian planet, I wrote down, I wonder if the Lapirians knew what was up, being like, did they know that they were in imminent danger? Right, and so at first they were pointing as in it's there, neat.
The child's on the shoulders.
So I wrote, I wonder if they knew what was up. And then right after I wrote that, Mariner goes, like a badass captain who knows what's up. She said that. She said, like a badass captain who knows what.
And what does this coincidence indicate to you?
This indicates that I wrote, I wonder if the Lapirians knew what was up.
Which is one statement.
And then Mariner, for whatever reason, talking about her mom going, like a badass captain who knows what's up.
Which is a completely separate statement with a completely different subject.
But knew what was up.
Does she know what's up, dog?
So yes, both statements
Both say
use a commonly used phrase.
It's
in
not
English.
that common. It's not that common. It's
quite common.
It's not when you know what's up. You don't say, okay, you want to look, let's see how many times they said in this episode. Probably that one time.
No, I don't mean it's common in this episode. I mean it's a common modern colloquial phrase in the English speaking world, particularly in America.
Look, man, if they said goo boo gabu giboo, and I wrote goo boo gabu giboo.
Yes, exactly. If they said that, then I would say I don't know the point you're trying to make. Do you have a psychic connection?
No.
Like what point are you making?
I just thought it was, you know what point I'm making.
No, I do not. I honestly do not.
You're doing that thing again where you're trying to downplay something I said for no reason.
The implication that I'm getting, which I could be interpreting wrong, but the implication, the only way I can interpret what you're describing is you wrote something in your notes and then somebody said something similar in the show.
Yeah.
And thus...
That's pretty. And it was literally like right after.
But what does it mean? Like what point are we supposed to carry away from that?
It was just kind of crazy. Haven't you ever had that happen where you say something and someone else says something, or you think about the phone and then suddenly it rings? It's just one of those things.
It's just the magic of existence.
I'm not saying I'm not saying it's proof of God or anything.
Okay, no, it's a good.
I'm just saying that it was like
it's a nice anecdote. I'm sorry.
It's a very nice anecdote, Dan.
It is a very nice.
It's a very nice anecdote, Dan. You're all very good, Dan. We have some cookies for you later if you want some. I'm gonna give you a pat on the head.
We do not have cookies, and COVID rules prevent me from patting you on the head.
You
extra punto.
But we'll save them up. We'll save them up for when we can do that.
You went from downplaying my coincidence to patronizing me.
To be accurate, I was patronizing you, but I was also patronizing you using a global tragic pandemic to make the point.
Oh, wait a minute. Now you're doing that thing you did with Jesse. I said nothing about a global pandemic. You're the one who said a global pandemic.
I know. And you've misinterpreted because I'm saying I want the audience to understand the full depth of my depravity in this situation.
Oh, I thought you were accusing me of using a...
No, I'm accusing myself.
Now you're changing history.
No, I'm not.
Are you trying to change history?
Right. I think that's the end of this 99th episode of the podcast. We do expect there will be 100 next week.
100th.
As a quick reminder, next week is going to be listener special, and who knows? There'll be
so we're not going to talk about a specific episode.
Not a specific episode. We'll answer people's questions about. People are asking things like, "What's your favorite episode of blah blah blah?"
We're just going to freestyle it.
Doo-ba-da-ba-doo, and
freestyle walking. We're going to do some freestyle walking.
There might be
We're going to be balls out.
Maybe we'll have some prizes. I don't know, or something like that. We'll figure some stuff out. But it's going to be a fun episode next week, and then we'll discuss also what happens after that. So write us in feedback at itsgotstartrek.com with any questions and comments and thoughts and theories.
Do you think freestyle walking is as cool as parkour? I think it's nowhere near as cool.
Criticism. Parkour looks really awesome.
Parkour is like more dangerous.
It's like you're flipping up.
I mean, because
off the wall. And
skateboarding is awesome, but like transferring it to running is not that great. But parkour is fucking badass. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Freestyle walking is like skateboarding without the skateboard, which is kind of like
freestyle walking. Like looks kind of cool. It's less dangerous. I mean, parkour sometimes you're kind of like, all right, but I respect parkour more when they're going someplace and you're like, oh, you couldn't get there without parkour.
You could walk on.
But
the
a lot
ceiling.
of times you're watching parkour and you're just like, you're just doing stupid shit.
Yeah. Well, I think I read that the whole point of parkour was to it's the art of getting from point A to point B. That's pretty much
in an artful way. But there's got to be a point A and point B. That there's it's a personal subjective thing.
No, I agree.
I want them to get to someplace hard to get to.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that's where the most fun is involved. I also think it's neat when they jump from like 2 stories up and they know how to fall just right and roll and fall to transfer their energy so they don't die. That's pretty neat.
And sometimes they die.
Yeah, sometimes they die.
Yeah. You don't usually see those videos unless you hang around on liveleak.com. All right. So send us in your messages to feedback at itsgotstartrek.com or on social media at itsgotstartrek, where you can find us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Sign up, subscribe to us on YouTube. A lot of people are getting a lot of growth on YouTube listeners listening to the podcast via their televisions or whatever.
You did a thing like you were playing with a video game.
Yeah, you know,
You can watch
the kids these
the
days.
podcast.
These kids these days with their computer
Whoa,
devices.
you should be able to play a podcast.
You're supposed to listen to it, but you can actually just watch
Well,
it.
you work on that, Dan. You can interactify our
Play it.
podcast.
no, I meant
can-
just play it. I mean, just make it go.
I think you've been playing us this whole time.
Yeah, all right. But yeah, you know what you're listening to this, so you know where to get us. But the usual spots: Apple Podcasts and Amazon Music and Google Podcasts and websites, and I don't know. Just search for It's About
Hot
Star
stuff,
Trek.
jiggity
Tell your
janks.
friends, rate and review, and do all that other bullshit that podcasters are weirdly obligated to ask you to do. We don't have any ads at this time, unless you're listening in the future, in which case ads may have been inserted retroactively.
So this is all a hilarious,
Yeah, so what are you going to do?
anachronism that
Don't
we're
even
Today,
worry about it.
I'm drinking Monster Energy Zero Ultra and Liquid Death sparkling water.
And he's doing it for free. We are not sponsored by Monster Energy
I
Drink.
lost money on the deal.
Yeah, it's not an investment. He's consuming these things, and we do hope to get some free ones.
I never had Liquid Death before. It's all right. It's like sparkling water.
All right, so that's going to do it for us this week. Next week, the 100th episode. We look forward to having all sorts of fun tales and talking.
The liquidity
and
of
all
death.
sorts of stuff. All sorts of stuff there. While you wait around for that, listen to our back catalog and listen to all the episodes in the back catalog. Otherwise, you can find us around the same time on the internet. Around the same time,
Mock
again,
Talk.
or whatever time you want.
next week, or in the future, you'll just click next on the playlist, depending on which order. Some people listen to podcasts going backwards, which is also
that's tight.
yeah. It probably makes more sense because maybe they're better.
Oh, I thought you meant they listened to it in reverse. Like,
I'm sure some people do that too. I don't know if we want them to be our fans, but I'm open.
you got to be like in a real type. You got to be in a real type of situation in your life to like want to do that.
Yeah, it's upsetting.
Yeah.
It's upsetting. All right.
Hallucinogens are involved. I think.
Until this time next week, we wish you all the best.
Absolutely.
We'll talk to you later.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
You shouldn't be treating phaser burns. I'm moving you into senior science officer training. Wait, like to work on the bridge? Like Jadzia Dax? Who the is that? I don't know who that is. No, like Spock. It means a lot more experiments, away missions. Think you can handle it? Thank you so much. I'm okay with this.